Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to Crafters TV. My name is Ben Moseby. I hope you are well and you're ready for another one of our Craft Your Stash shows. These shows all about helping you to get the very best out of your crafty equipment. So it may well be that you already have everything that we're going to bring to you on the show, but maybe you're not quite sure how to get the very best out of it. Hopefully over the course of the next hour, we're going to help you do that. And today's Craft Your Stash is concentrating on all things when it comes to embossing. Now, maybe it's different machines you're not quite sure about. Maybe it's different embossing folders you're not quite sure about. Maybe it's the plate combinations that confuse you. Hopefully over the course of the next hour, we can get all of that solved with Craig, who's here to take us through it. What exactly are you going to be showing us, Craig, over the course of the next hour?
Right, well, we're going to be having a look at our 2D folders, 3D folders, cut and emboss folders. We're also going to be looking at some stencils as well. And what we're going to do is we'll just do things like generic embossing. We'll go over the plates, of course, as you said there, Ben. We'll do embossing through stencils. We'll do letterpress techniques. I'm going to be doing it through the G2. So whether you're doing it through the G2, whether you're doing it through the OG, whether you're doing it with the Junior, the plate configurations will always be exactly the same. It's just, of course, I'm going to be doing it with the G2. What we'll do is I will step you through whether if you're going to be doing some of them with, of course, the Gemini MIDI, because of course you can emboss with a folder with the Gemini MIDI for 2D and 3D, but of course it's slightly different because it's manual, not electric. So we're just going to do exactly as you said. We're going to go right back to the beginning, right back to basics, and talk you through all the different configurations for your Crafter's Companion folders and stencils.
Everything that you see on this show as well, at time of recording, is available on the website. So if you see something on this show, maybe it is one of the machines, maybe it's something that Craig is demonstrating with, if you see it and you like it, we'll give you the information on it. So you basically just need to search on the web and you should be able to find it. And of course, with it being a pre-recorded show, we won't be able to answer your questions, but of course you can chat to each other in the comments. And I know Craig will be very thorough going through everything, and I will try and ask some questions on your behalf as well as we head through the show. But I think it's going to be comprehensive. I think we're going to cover off everything. And the first thing that we're going to look at with Craig is 2D embossing plate combinations. Because I think, Craig, as you said, as you come onto with the manual machines, you don't really have to think too much when it comes to the manual machines. But with the electronic machines, it's very important to get your plate combinations right, isn't it?
Absolutely. The thing is, once you've nailed it for your 2D embossing folders, then it's exactly the same for all your 2D embossing folders from Crafter's Companion. But we'd always urge, if it's other brands that you're using, which you can absolutely do that, sometimes you just need to check with those manual guides or even with them on their website themselves, just to say you've got a Gemini, you want to check the plate configuration, because some can be slightly thicker or thinner than others. So everything I'm talking you through within this show here is all about Crafter's Companion folders. So to start with your G2, we're going to bring in a 2D folder here. Now, when it comes to your embossing folders, Ben, what you're going to be needing pretty much at some point is all 4 of these. So these are going to be your 2 base plates, frosted and magnetic. Now, you're not always going to use them at 1R, but this is kind of the 4 that you're going to need when it comes to folders. And then when we come along to the stencils later in this show, you're going to need your rubber embossing mat. But 2D embossing folders, what you're going to need, Ben, is your 2 cutting plates.
Right.
So this is your 2 cutting plates for your Gemini. Now, whether that's the Junior or the OG, it doesn't matter, 2 cutting plates. So what I've got, Ben, is I've got this is your musical lyrics that we had from the Holly and Ivy collection.
Okay.
Now it is a 2D folder, it's 6x6. Size is kind of irrelevant. It's the fact that it is your 2D folder. What that means is the embossed detail, the raised detail from this musical notes, Ben, is all on one level. And I'll explain the difference with a 3D folder when we move on to that just shortly. So all that detail is all on one level. Now you can get 2 different effects because this side here, the detail is in the folder.
Yeah.
On this side, the detail is raised up from the folder. So you get a nice look. You get an either emboss or deboss look depending on the side that you're using. So for this one, it shows off on black and our gilding wax, so we'll show you that in a moment here. But what we're just going to do is we're simply going to pop your cardstock in the folder. Now, what we'd always recommend is make your cardstock a little bit smaller than your folder. If your card is bigger than your folder, what can happen? It can start to bend, it can start to crease, and it can start to buckle at the sides. Because it's embossed detail, that extra card has to come from somewhere. It's been pushed into the detail, so it has to be pulled from somewhere. Gets pulled from the sides. To eliminate that, just make it a little bit smaller than your folder. Then what you're going to be doing is you're going to go onto your base cutting plate. You're then going to put your top plate over the top, keeping in mind, reiterating again, this is for a 2D folder, and then we're simply going to run that one through. So take little notes for yourself so that you've got your little book, your little notes at the side there. You can always come back to this show and refer back to, but what you've then got is you've then got the pressure with the Gemini and with this folder, you're left with the musical notes. At this moment in time, it's a little bit harder to see, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in with a little bit of wax here, Ben. You'll find all of these on the website as well. We'll cover white card within this show too, and then I'm just going to go onto my glass mat there, and then what we're going to do is with our finger, we're going to rub and we're going to roll. And the reason I purposely wanted to use black within the gilding wax with a 2D folder is so that we can really start to see that detail being pulled out from our cardstock. So what we're going to have is we're going to have all of these musical notes, or of course, depending what the image is on your folder, all of that is going to be raised up on that one level. So you can see as I start to turn this one around, what we've then got is the beautiful emboss. Now this could be black card, this could be white, this could be craft, this could be coated card, this could be material, it could be lots and lots of different things, such as, what about acetate? Now with the acetate, you can cover this within your 3D folders as well, but with the acetate, we're just going to sit this one into our folder, run it through here. We're going to do exactly the same, place it in, run it through, and then that's then going to emboss your acetate. So think about packaging that you've got as well. To upcycling it, then of course you can use it with your folders. Taking this one out here, so maybe you're going to do things such as shakers, Ben, what a really nice way to decorate. But if I lift this one up, I'm going to go in with my black card just underneath, and then I'm going to tilt that forward, and that's going to let you see that that embossed detail has now transferred through into the acetate. So really simple to start with your card in acetate. With a 2D folder, if you are going to be using your MIDI, what you're going to be doing is pop your card, your acetate, your material in the folder, sit it on that shim, run that through the MIDI, and that is the only difference from your G2 electric to your MIDI manual.
Is there, when it comes to cardstock, as I say, I'll try and ask questions that I think might crop up. Is there like a minimum and maximum weight, or is there like a best weight for getting the best emboss?
So that's a really good question. We always say around about that 240. Great for construction. It's great for, of course, embossing as well. You can absolutely go lighter if you want to. You can absolutely go heavier if you want to. You can go to 310, 320 if you want. Construction acetate, you can absolutely do that as well. No problem whatsoever. What I would say is if you're using anything like a 3D embossing folder, try and not go too light. So I wouldn't recommend like a copier paper for your home printer or that for a 3D folder. All that detail needs to be pulled in, so therefore what can happen, sometimes it could bend, it could split because you've got all that detail. So you've got different options there when it comes to the weight, when it comes to, of course, the thickness, but remember as well, you've got the different materials as well that you can use, Ben.
Just to say, of course, if you want to try the things out that Craig is using, that was the little Christmas music embossing folder, the 2D embossing folder from the Holly and Ivy collection. So if you want to pick these items up, they should be on the website. Just simply search for them in the search bar, and then you'll be able to pick up all of the bits and pieces that Craig is using over the course of this show. Things like your cardstock will be there as well, and acetate and all those sort of things you can pick up on the website. All right, so slightly changes then, doesn't it? So we've kind of covered off our 2D embossing folders, but you guys will know there's different types of embossing folders. Then we have our 3D embossing folders, and that's what we're going to look at now next with Craig. So the plate combination, I'm guessing, for the 3D embossing folder is going to be slightly different.
It is, yeah. It's going to be slightly thinner because your 3D embossing folders are slightly thicker. So I brought this one in, Ben, from Jingle all the way here.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring in my rubber embossing mat just to make it easier to see here. Now, where I explained, Ben, that your 2D embossing folder, the detail is all raised on one level. The difference with a 3D embossing folder, you can have 3, 4, 5, 6 different levels within the design. That's what makes it 3D. So some can be light in emboss, some can be really quite high in emboss. So for that reason, it's a thicker folder. So when it comes to your plate configuration for your electric Gemini, you need to reduce it. So what we're going to do is, if I bring in the plates, now, these were the 2 plates that we used for a 2D embossing folder. However, that 2 of them together is going to be too thick in conjunction with, of course, your 3D folder.
So if you tried to do that in your Gemini 2, would it just spit it back out again?
It would stop and reverse and
Right.
spit it back out automatically.
Okay.
So you don't need to worry. Of course, we always say, if you can, try and remember the right plate configuration.
Yeah.
Don't worry if it doesn't. It's not going to hurt it. It's not going to damage it or harm it. What it's going to do, it's just going to pause, it's reversing out, and then for you, that's your sign to be like, I've done something wrong here with the plate. So what we need to do is these 2 plates we need to make thinner. So what we're going to do, so this is for a 3D embossing folder, Ben. We're going to go 1 base plate, we're going to use magnetic shim, and we're going to use frosted shim.
Right.
So that's what you're going to be needing for your 3D embossing folders. So we've got our base cutting plate, we've got a magnetic shim, and we've got a frosted shim. So what we're going to do is if we bring in that folder here, so we've got the folder. Now, remember whereas I was saying, of course, about cutting your cardstock to the right size. I'm going to do that right now, and I'm going to show you how I do it. And what I mean by showing you how I do it, the folder is 4 by 6. So what I like to do, Ben, is I like to come down a couple of mils just before the 4-inch, and a couple of millimeters just before the 6-inch, just making it a tiny, tiny bit smaller than the folder. That's what we like to do. That's going to make it, of course, that true size, and what it's going to do is it's going to eliminate any of that bending, that buckling, or that tearing of any excess cardstock. So we're going to open it up. I always like to have a little bit of a feel here, Ben. So this side here has got all of the deboss detail. So it's way into the back.
Yeah.
This side here has got the raised detail, which is then facing upwards. So that's the side that looks really, really pretty. So we've got the raised side there. So what I'm going to do is bring in some of our mirror cardstock, and we're going to sit that over the top because we want that raised detail within the folder to be pushing up into the mirror card. So we're going to sit that in, we're going to close that folder over, and then we're going to go in with our base plate. We're then going to go in with our magnetic shim first, and then we're going to go in with our frosted shim. We're just going to tidy and align, and then we're going to run that one through. We can then just let go, and then what that does, the rollers within your Gemini machine or your original Gemini takes into account the thickness of the folder, your plate configuration, and then within a 3D folder, if you've never seen this before, are you ready?
Whoa!
Look at that. And that's taken into account all the different images and the different depth that you've got from a 3D embossing folder. It looks absolutely stunning. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And then the difference when it comes to your MIDI, and this is where it's absolutely amazing, Ben. With your 3D folder, pop your cardstock inside, and that is it. You don't need anything else for your Gemini Mini or your Gemini MIDI. Cardstock inside, straight through your MIDI, that's it. No shim, no plates, no nothing.
And again, with the MIDI, if, for example, you did forget and you tried to, say you got confused and you thought a 3D was a 2D and you tried to use that shim, you wouldn't be able to force it. The MIDI's not going to spit it back out, but you wouldn't be able to force it through, would you?
No, not at all, no. So anything, die cutting, embossing, whatever it is with the MIDI, You're running it through. If it gets to a point that it's just not going, it's not turning, just stop, and then just reevaluate what it is that you're trying to do.
And just a quick question again for people who are sort of fairly new to this. Is it, if I, say for example, I've got a 2D embossing folder and a 3D embossing folder, but say I've lost the packaging and I don't know which is which, is it very, very easy to kind of work out which is which?
Absolutely, yeah. Really is easy visually, but also just with the touch and the feel. Run your hand over a 2D folder. It's all, as I said, all on one level. 3D folder, you've got lots of different depths. You've got a light depth, you've got a medium depth, you've got a thicker depth. It's all on different areas. Plus, the actual folder itself, Ben, irrelevant of the size of the folder, the depth of the folder, a 3D one is thicker compared to a 2D folder.
All great information, this, isn't it? And hopefully you're picking up some hints and tips. Hopefully, you know, if you are someone perhaps who has been crafting for a while, it's all good kind of like refresher information. This is the folder that Craig has just been using, Jingle All the Way. So that's that 3D embossing folder. Again, if you want to pick that up, if you just search for that on the website, you'll be able to find that and indeed everything else that he's using. I know something which a lot of you are probably thinking now as you're watching, like, oh, I wonder if he's going to be, you know, using different materials. That is to come a little bit later on. So if you are wondering about the different things that you can the different things that you can emboss, then you've got maybe 10-15 minutes to wait, and we'll be going through all of that. Something interesting though, which I didn't find out until fairly recently, was that we can emboss with not just embossing folders, but Craig, we can emboss with stencils as well.
Absolutely, yeah, you can do that, of course. Now, what we need to say is you do need your electric die cutting machine, your electric Gemini, to emboss with stencils here. So this could be your large stencils, this could be small stencils. So don't just use these for doing things such as inking and blending. This is where you can take your stencil and then you can start to then pop that through your Gemini. This is where you're going to need your purple or your raspberry embossing mat. If you're using your original Gemini, it will be purple. The G2, of course, is going to be your raspberry. So what we're going to need for this one, Ben, is you're going to go in with your base plate. So we're going to take our base plate. What we're then going to do is we're going to pop our stencil of choice onto our base plate. We're then going to come along with our card. Now I'm going to use our gold satin cardstock. So what we're going to do is, I want the detail to be then pushed through there. So I'm going to turn that in on itself. What we're then going to do is we're going to bring in our rubber embossing mat. Yeah. So that's going to go over the top. We are then going to bring in our frosted shim. Then I want to point out this here, Ben. We're not using the magnetic shim. Never use the magnetic shim and the rubber embossing mat at the same time. There is not a plate configuration where you use both of them. It's either one or the other. Okay. So we don't need that, so that can go to the side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then bring in our top plate. We're just going to run that one through here. Now what you will find when you're looking at it at home, it will stretch your embossing mat. It's not going to damage it. So don't worry, it's not going to tear it or anything like that if you're using the right plate configuration. Can you see just here? It's now sticking out the edge here of my actual plate configuration. So we can see that sticking out. So what we're then going to do is we're just going to then lift this one up, and then you'll already just start to see the deboss side here. But if we then remove that one out of place, we've now got all of those little bubbles that have now been embossed through into the card.
That's incredible with a stencil.
Isn't it? Really smart that you can do that with a stencil. Now, I've done it on our gold satin cardstock, but you can do this within your white card. You can do this with things such as your black cardstock if you want to. You can then come along and then you can then start to add that to the background of your cards. If you do it onto white card, go over with your inks afterwards as well. Start to elevate the actual emboss with the stencils, but with your inks. If you love sandtangling and zentangling, start to do all those crafts in via the form of embossing with your stencils and then getting creative afterwards.
Is that only going to work on thicker cardstock though, with it being like a thinner material?
So no, you can do it on your thinner materials as well. So what I would say is things such as your cardstock, your matte card, you can do it within your coated cardstock, and you can do it with your thinner card or papers. But then going by what you were just saying there, Ben, what you're going to find is you're going to get a better result, you're going to get a deeper result with a thicker card, because obviously thicker card, you've got more card being pushed through into the actual stencils. If it's a very light card or a light paper, it's very, very little for actually to be pushed through. So making sure you've got that right plate configuration that I just showed you there, that's going to enable you to take any of your stencils, any that come on their own, some that come with your dies, whatever it is, you can then run through. And just to reiterate again, Ben, this is for your electric die cutting machines. You're not able to do these with your MIDI because, of course, you need an embossing mat, which you don't get with the MIDI.
And just on a slightly different tangent before we move on, so the fact that we can run our stencils through and emboss with those, can we, if we say, got templates, for example, like the Laird templates, can we put those through the machine? Will that work in that same sort of way?
Absolutely, yeah, works in the exact same way. So if you've got a box template, or as exactly Ben said, any template to then create a box or something like that, do exactly as I done there, and then the outline of the template, you're going to come along with your scissors, and that's a nice way to be using the actual template to benefit yourself from creating that box or that project, whatever the form of the template is.
Oh, brilliant, this, isn't it? Make sure you bookmark this show. I know we've said this previously on Craft Your Stash shows, but just remember when you saw it, what time it is, write it down so you can come back to it at a later date, because I know what will happen. You'll watch your show, maybe if you're not taking notes, you'll think, oh, what did Craig say about this, or what did Craig say about that? Make sure you note where it is so that you can come back to it. These are great for refreshers, of course. If you do want the stencil that Craig was just working with, it comes in the Colour Your World stencil set. That one is called your Bubbles and Balloons because it's got bubbles and balloons in it. Those are the 8x8 size as well. Again, if you search for that on the website, that should be there for you. We've got more to show you over the course of this Craft Your Stash show. Things to come on to that we haven't covered yet. Cut and emboss folders, again, that's going to be slightly different, isn't it? So information coming there. And as I touched on a little bit earlier on, all of the different things that we can emboss onto, because we've obviously covered off cardstock, but you'll be surprised actually at the amount of different things that you are able to use with your embossing folders. So we will cover all of that and more when this Craft Your Stash show continues in just a moment.
Day to day looks like, on a normal day when I'm working from home, get up, breakfast, quick phone call with my daughter, and then I'm up in the craft room and I spend all my time in the craft room. If it's spending a day with the grandkids, that's it. That's my best part of the day, just spending time with family and those gorgeous little grandkids of mine. The best part of the day when I'm at work is when I go on air, because I absolutely love it. Both. I prefer a shower in the morning. I feel fresher. I feel that I can tackle my day. However, depending on how that day's been, I also would have a double shower, so I'd have one in the morning and one at night too. Absolutely, 100% coffee. Will always be coffee. And flavoured coffee is my favourite at the moment. Dare I say, it's a full English breakfast, the full works, the beans, the tomatoes, the bacon, the sausage, and everything else that goes with a traditional English breakfast. Craft along. Every day of the week. I absolutely love going through the stages from the start of a project to the end of a project. So craft along is definitely my favourite choice. I can't leave without my lipstick. It's a given thing. I once didn't have a lipstick on me and Leanne helped me out that day. Kick off the shoes, sit down for a couple of minutes, just gather my thoughts and then grab my tea.
Come in, check my emails, then lay the shows out in the studio, set pack shop. Then I will get new polls, pick shows, solve any problems that need solving. We deal with other teams where we receive market and suites, we receive boards. We pick samples to send to Hobby Maker. We pick samples to send to QVC. We will take the previous shows out of the studios, set the new shows up. We do floor manage occasionally, not all the time, making sure that the craft expert presenters have everything at hand that they need. Anything that they haven't got during shows, we will run about and get the products for them. Think on a morning when it's really quiet, I can get more done when there's nobody else in the building. Night owl. Morning. Coffee on a morning, tea the rest of the day. Savoury. Normally lunchtime. Craft along. Mobile phone. Christina's chicken wrap. Barry White. You're my first, my last, my everything. Go home and make the tea.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Craft Your Stash, the shows where hopefully we give you all the information you need when it comes to lots of different crafty disciplines, covering a range of different techniques, different crafts within these shows. Today, we're concentrating on all things embossing. If you have just joined us, do make sure you go back, watch the start of the show. We've covered off 2D embossing and the plate combinations for that. We've had a look at 3D embossing folders too, plus, and again, I think it's something that some people might not know, particularly beginners, how you can emboss with a stencil. So we've covered that off already. The next thing to come on to, which I think is quite exciting, is the amount of different materials that you can emboss onto. Obviously, so far, we've sort of looked more at your sort of card and paper and all those kind of things. But Craig, we're not limited, are we, to just using cardstock when we're doing our embossing?
Definitely not. You'll see me just in a moment. We'll go back and we'll recap with that acetate. I've got some vellum at the side of me here. We've got our core cardstock that you can sand back, and even that you guys call it your tins of pop.
Oh yeah.
I call it the fizzy juice. You can use your fizzy juice tins, aluminum foil onto your double-sided sheets and that. So all of these that you can be using. So let's bring these in just now to start with, Ben, just to show you. I've got my tins here that you can see from your fizzy juice. What you're going to find as well, have a look on the website. So you can see these ones here, Ben, these being the blocks. So have a look, because what you'll find is you will get them on the website here, and these are going to be good for your core cardstock. So let's just pop all these little bits here to the side to start with, and let's just go back into, of course, our acetate to start with. So I'm going to pop my acetate inside. This is a 2D embossing folder, Ben. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to, of course, our plate configuration, which is going to be our base plate, and then we're going to go in with our top plate. So 2D embossing folder, running it through. Now, the materials that I'm using here, you can absolutely do that with your 3D folder. What you'll just need to do is obviously have your plate configuration for your 3D folder. So I'm going to then take this one off here, and then what we're going to be left with is, if I bring in a bit of darker card just to show off the detail. It's always hard when it comes to acetate.
Oh, you can see that, right?
The floral leaves have been embossed.
Yes.
Now, Ben, you can go in with things such as your alcohol pens if you want to, and colour that in. That can look fab as well. Or maybe you're doing a shaker. Instead of having a plain piece of acetate, why not emboss your acetate so you've got a lovely embossed layer of acetate? Then what we're going to do is let's go into, I've got some coloured vellum here. It could be your plain vellum, it could be your parchment, and every material, Ben, it's the same plates for your 2D. So although some materials might be thinner, some might be thicker, don't focus on the material, you're focusing on the folder. So that's what's telling you your plate configuration. So as I said, we've got 2D folder, so it's exactly the same. We're going to go in with the base, and then we're going to go in with our top plate, and then we're going to be running it through. Now what I've just embossed there with the vellum, the acetate, and also what I'm going to show you just shortly, you can also do with the MIDI. The thing is, instead of the plates, you're going to use that shim because it's a 2D folder. So let's move that one out the way just for a moment. We're just going to lift. Now vellums can be delicate, so keep that one in mind. But then what we can do is I tip that one fold forward. What you're going to find is it's normal, it's natural, so don't worry, and that is it will crack.
Yeah.
But I think it gives it a really beautiful, that's the opposite side.
Wow.
And that gives it that really nice white work effect.
Like parchment,
so if you love the look of parchment, if you love the look of heat embossing, but you don't want to do it onto vellum, which you can do, just go in with your embossing folder and it gives you that white work look. So that is the emboss side. So that is the raised detail side, and that is the deboss side. So that's all been pushed in. So that one's being your vellum. So now that we've gone in with that one, let's go in with what looks like kind of our standard linen cardstock. And it's our beautiful card, but this is our core card. So this is our card that you could sand back, which is the tools that I showed you here. And I know Ben will do a little bit of a recap with that just shortly. And again, we've gone from acetate, we've gone from vellum. Now this is cardstock, but we are still using the same plate configuration for a 2D folder. So we're going to go in with the base, and then we're going to go in with our top plate. So we're going to then just pick that one up, and then we're going to be running that one through. Now if you're using our junior machine, of course, the plate, exactly the same, but they're just on that smaller form. So let's take this one out here. And I'm using the same folder for each one, but you could be doing lots of your different folders if you want. So what we've got here is we've got the emboss and the deboss side. So if I go with the deboss and then the emboss, but the great thing with this cardstock, Ben, is if you go in with that sand and block tool, we can then go along and we can start to sand back that raised detail. So this side is the side that is essentially embossed. It's sticking up. So we're just going to then go back and forth. You can go circular motions if you want to.
Yeah.
You can then start to pull and you can start to drag if you want. And what that's doing is that's going to then take off that top layer of the embossed detail. And I'm going to keep one side undone, and this side will just spend a little bit longer going in, a little bit more heavier handed by taking off that colour at the top. The core is white, so we're just going to then go in, take that off, and then what I'm going to do is this kind of like a little tack mat here. It's like a little bit of cloth. What's going to happen is all of that fine powder from what you've sanded back is going to be, look at that, it's all been picked up on there. And then what we've then got is we've got beautiful design that we've now sanded back.
That's so cool.
So you've got that white work once again. So we've got white work from our vellum, and we've got our white work from our card. Now because that's uncoated, Ben, you could go over the top with your inks if you want to, and then you can change that raised detail into another colour using one of our inks, of course, that we featured within the previous show. So that's then your core cardstock. But then what about what so many people love, and that is your juice tins. So this could be your tins. Now, of course, they are recyclable, but what a great way to recycle them by running them through your folders. If you're going to do that, please do be careful when it comes to, of course, cutting them. Although our scissors work with these ones, you do have a sharp edge because it is, of course, a piece of metal. The alternative, Ben, pop your double-sided adhesive sheets onto a piece of white cardstock, and then your tin foil or your aluminum foil, stick that over the top, and that's a good substitute for, of course, your tins. So a little bit of a top tip for you there when it comes to the aluminum foil or your tins. And then what I'm going to do, so this side is the raised detail sticking upwards. So I'm going to then just pop that in. So I've got my clear inside of my tin facing me. And obviously, because it's a drinks tin, it is going to naturally curl. We're going to close that one over. And even although this is a piece of metal tin bin, my plate configuration stays the same.
Okay.
So it does not matter, and I know I featured and said this just a moment ago, you're not focusing on the material for the plate configuration, it's always the folder that you're focusing on. Everyone has been a 2D folder here, so therefore it is the plate configuration for your 2D folder.
Oh, look at that.
And look at that. Not only is it flattened it out, but what you've then got is you've got all that embossed detail. And just so you show, it is an actual fact, a drinks tin here. No trickery on the eye. That is now your embossed detail. And you can do it with 3D if you want to, Ben. Absolutely, you can do, no problem whatsoever. So there's just some of the different materials that you can be doing. We've just done our fizzy juice tin that we can see here. We've also then just come along, and with this one, go in with your alcohol pens as well, Ben.
Yeah.
Nice to go in with the fine detail, the point of your illustrators. We've done our core cardstock that you can sand back. Then we've gone along with our vellum, where you get a nice light emboss, but on the opposite side, you've got that deep deboss of that white work. And then of course, we did do that with our acetate as well. All of these showed them off really well with that 2D embossing folder. You can use all these materials and many more with the 3D folder. What you're going to do with that is then you're going to switch, you're going to do to your base plate, you're then going to do your magnetic shim, and then you're going to do your plastic shim as well, with of course your 3D folder card or material inside.
Brilliant, and that's just a few of the different materials that you can use as well. I think by no means is that list sort of definitive right there. Lots of other materials you'll be able to bring in. If you do want to be able to use the folder that Craig was just using, it's this one here, one of our illustrated embossing folders. It's called Flourishing Foliage. So if you like the look of that one, you'll find that one on the website. It's one of our 6x4 standard embossing folders. And if you like the idea of also being able to sand back your cardstock, that Colorcore cardstock, we actually launched back on birthday as part of a bundle, but you should still be able to get it on its own, and then the sanding block and the dust cloth to go with it. So you get 2 sanding blocks and then that dust cloth included within that. So it's great that you've got the sanding blocks there to be able to take that colour off, to strip it back to the core, and then you've got the dust cloth to take off the remnants so that you can reveal that beautiful detail of whatever embossing folder that you've used. As you said, everything that Craig is using over the course of this show, you should be able to find it on the website. All you need to do is just type in the details of the product into the search bar on the main page, and then the item that you're looking for will pop up. Still lots more to look at. We're going to have a look at in a little while how you can elevate your embossing, but we mentioned earlier on, obviously 2D embossing folders we've looked at, 3D embossing folders we've looked at, but we also have cut and emboss folders as well. So let's go back to Craig and talk about cut and emboss folders. I know you're going to take us through the plate combinations, but for people perhaps who are fairly new, what's so different about a cut and emboss folder? What can we do with this?
These are really fun.
Yeah.
They're all fun, but these are really fun because these folders incorporate a die with them. Now, make it really simple for you. We only do cut and emboss folders with a 2D folder. Okay, doc? So we've not got any dies incorporated with any 3D folders. So you can eliminate the thought of a 3D folder. Now, we're going to be using this embossing folder. So this being a cut and emboss folder here. So we've got all of that detail there, which is going to emboss.
Yeah.
But what you've got in here is you've got a die in the middle there. So that die, that's going to die cut and emboss at the same time. Now what you've then got is you've then got that little bit, it's like a little bit of sponge there.
So glad you're talking about this.
Yes, a little bit of sponge. Please do not pick that out.
No, people do, don't they?
They do pick that out. That is there to serve a purpose. That's there to stop the die going all the way into your plastic. It will mark it slightly, but it's there to serve a purpose, and that's there just to protect the opposite side. So don't take that out. What I do want to point out is even though there's a die in here, what you're doing, Ben, it's still a 2D folder, so therefore it's your 2 cutting plates.
Right.
Do not get worried, do not get confused about it. Well, what's the plate configuration for a cut and emboss folder? A cut and emboss folder is only in a 2D forum, so therefore it's the 2D embossing folder plate configuration.
So to talk MIDI-wise then, can we use it in the MIDI, and if we can, is it the same there as well?
Absolutely, you can use it with the MIDI. All you're going to do is you're going to pop that one in here.
Yep.
But well, do you know what? We'll do it just afterwards.
Yes, yes.
What we're going to do is we're going to do that, and then you're going to sit that through over the top.
Perfect.
So tell you what, let's just do that right now, Ben. Let me get also another piece of gold here. And then we're just going to chop it down. This one that I'm using is 4x6. So as I said, it's always good just to have your cardstock to the size that you need. So let's go in, and I'm going just under the 4-inch, just under the 6-inch, and then I'm going to do the same, just under the 4-inch, just under the 6-inch. I know sometimes people get a little bit confused, Ben, with your plate configurations and a cut and emboss folder because you think there's a die in it, I have to do something different. No, you don't. It's 2D folder, and that's what you're focusing on. So what I'm going to do within this one here, we're just going to have another little bit of a feel. All this side is the raised detail facing upwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop our card in with the shiny side facing up, and then we're going to close it. So when it comes to your MIDI, we're going to sit it on the shim, and then we're just going to then run that one through. Now, it doesn't matter whether the shim's underneath or on top. It's irrelevant. You're just going to make sure that it's sitting on your shim. You're then going to move that one out of the way. What you've then got is you've got your little oval that's die cut.
So good.
And then you've got the embossed detail all the way around. And that is just with the aid of a shim.
Yeah.
So that is, of course, with your MIDI. So what we're just going to then do is let's just use that same folder again, but we're going to use our Gemini 2. So we're going to do the same. We're going to pop it in. And please just have a play with your different materials. I know I'm using kind of the select main ones, but then you can then have a little bit of a play. I've talked you through your plate configurations, 2D, 3D, cut and emboss with your stencils, and then you can then have a come and have a play with the materials that you've got at home. Where I've been using certain materials with a 2D folder, you go and try it and have fun with a 3D folder. What we've then got is we've got that same folder with the center that's die cut out, but then we've got all of that detail that's raised as well. So even although that has the word die in the title, it's still just your 2 cutting plates because it is a 2D embossing folder.
All brilliant stuff, and if it's that particular folder that you like, it's this one here. It actually comes from the Venetian Grace collection, a favourite of mine. I love this collection. The one that you're looking for is called Opulent Grace. So if you do want to pick that one up, maybe it'll be the first cut and emboss folder that you buy. It's Venetian Grace, Opulent Grace cut and emboss folder. We've still got more to show you. It's been such a great show. I've really enjoyed this. Hopefully you feel like you're picking up loads of great knowledge, loads of ideas, things that potentially you might not have seen before. As I mentioned, anything that you've seen on the show, check the website for it. Just type it into the search bar and you'll be able to pop that into your cart. When we come back after a short break, we're going to have a look at how to sort of elevate your embossing. We've seen, obviously, lots of different ways as to how to use the embossing folders, but how do you take your embossing to the next level? We're going to find out all about that in just a few moments' time.
When I'm working, it's quite busy because I have to get up really early to come into work if I'm going to be travelling from London. But otherwise, I'm quite lazy. I spend a lot of time in bed. Best part of my day is when we come in and I get to see everybody. I really enjoy being up here. It's really nice to see all my friends, and this is my happy place. I do like to see everyone, and also, of course, if Christina's in, I'm getting my breakfast from Christina before I start the day. Early riser without a doubt, never a night owl. I'm in bed at 9:30. Bath at night, shower in the morning. I'm very clean. Tea, the colour of He-Man.
Both. I like pancakes with bacon and maple syrup. Craft along, because there's always a softer side craft along. My phone, my life is my phone. Yeah, the phone and the dog. Unless they're coming up here and I can't bring the dog in. My favourite lunch isn't lunch. My favourite lunch is afternoon tea. That's what I'd like. Lots of selection of sandwiches, some scones, or scones, some cream and jam, and some little cakes. But I couldn't have it every day because I'd be the size of a house. Oh, that changes to the moment. My favourite song at the moment is Natasha Bedingfield, Unwritten. Or make myself a cup of tea and go and have a bath.
My day-to-day life is pretty busy in work. Literally, I get in the door, I check my polls, I then check what I've got to demo, I then get everything ready, and it's just busy, busy, busy from there. I have a meeting with the producer, the director, we get then sorted for the shows, talk to the presenter, and it depends what side I'm on. I mean, sometimes I'm doing the presenting side, sometimes I'm doing the demonstration side, and I love both. It's actually who I get to work with. That's, yeah, I can't say no more than that other than anybody that works here. We are a big family. We're so super friendly. I love Ben. I love it when we work together. And I don't mean that I don't love anyone else. It's the fact that Ben is the presenter and then I'm demonstrating and we just have this great rapport. Same with Craig, same with Deb, same with the whole team. So yeah, the best part of the day is just getting to work with the best people in the industry. Oh, a night out. In the morning. Oh, none. I only drink water. Oh, well, I'm cutting out sugar, so it's got to be savoury. Masterclass. Oh, I can't leave the house without my lipstick. Oh, I love a baked potato. I relax, so I literally drive home normally and then I relax.
Welcome back, everybody, to Craft Your Stash, all about helping you get the very best out of your crafty stash. Whether this show serves as a bit of a reminder for you, or indeed whether it's the first time that you're hearing information on for this show, embossing folders, then we hope it's useful. We hope it's a show that you will come back to time and time again. If you do get a little bit stuck, as you said, there'll be lots of these Craft Your Stash shows floating around, so we should hopefully cover off everything when it comes to craft. This one's all about embossing. We've covered off a lot already. We've covered off your 2D embossing plate combinations, 3D embossing folder plate combinations. We've looked at how you can emboss with a stencil. We've chatted all around that. Great as well that we've talked to Craig about, you know, the plate combinations in the G2, but we've touched on the MIDI as well. So we've talked about the manual machines. Really brilliant in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes, just looking at how you can emboss onto different materials. But what about if you want to take your embossing to the next level? You want to elevate your embossing. How do we go about doing that, Craig?
Oh, we can do it in many, many ways. There's two ways that I like to do it, and that is with our ink pads, and something we touched upon right at the start, and that's our Gildan wax.
Ah, yes.
So I've gone in, this is a 3D embossing folder, and this is from our Majestic Unicorn collection. So what we're going to do to start with, we're going to be using a water reactive ink pad. Now you can then do what I'm away to do with many of our ink pads. The only one that I personally wouldn't do this with is a quick dry ink pad. Go back to the show that we done on our ink pads. I'll explain in there the ways to use quick dry and where not. Then this is why I would be doing, as I'm away to do now, with all of our ink pads, apart from the quick dry. And then we're also going to have a little bit of a play with the gilding wax as well. So, letterpress technique, what we call it. I've just got some of our white cardstock. Now this is taken one of our water-based ink pads, Ben, and then it's about going over the folder, and then with the pressure, the ink will absolutely be pulled and pushed through into, of course, our embossing folder. Now, what I like to do, Ben, is I like to do both sides, because then I've got that choice. I can look and see what side I like the best. What I would say, this won't ruin your folder. It may stain your folder, but as long as all of that ink has wiped off, you're going to be absolutely fine for future use. So don't worry if it is staining your folder, because you can still keep using it. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to go over both sides here, and then we're just inking up. So what's happening is our ink from our ink pad is only staying, and it's only being placed onto the flat piece of plastic. Now, within this one, the flat piece of plastic is going to be the actual image itself. On this side, it's actually the background piece of your embossing folder. So we're just going to go in, we're going to make sure we've got a nice coverage here, and then we're going to then bring in our card. Because we've got it on both sides, what we're going to do, Ben, is we're just going to be careful. We don't want to move our card, otherwise we're going to smudge it. We're going to then just close that over. Now, this is a 3D folder, remember, so what we're going to do is we're going to go base plate, we're then going to go in with our magnetic, and we're also going to go in with our frosted shim. So we're going to go onto our base plate, we're then going to go in with our magnetic shim, and then we're going to be going in with our frosted shim. We're going to run that through. Now, if you're doing this with the MIDI, which you can absolutely do, remember, don't do anything. Put your card in the folder and then just run it through. But what's happening here is the pressure is pushing the folder, pushing the card in, but it's transferring that ink into the detail. So let's then take one side. So you've got one side to choose from. So if I go in with that side here, you can either use this side where the ink's been pushed through, or my personal favourite, look at that. So all that flat surface of the ink pad, Ben, is now nice and smooth, and you've got all that white work from the emboss. So that is it being pushed into the deboss.
Both sides are a cool effect though, aren't they?
Both sides. Really, really beautiful. And of course, that's when it comes to, of course, the ink pad that you choose to use. But I do like to say, I like that one as well.
Yeah.
But then let's just bring in a bit of black cardstock. Now, of course, I would give this a wipe, usually, but I'm just going to run this one through here. We're going to do the same. We're going to go base plate. We're going to go in with our magnetic and then frosted. And then we're going to run this through. Now at the start here I used a gold wax. This one, what I'm going to do is just use a silver one. And this is just showing you, because we're now using the 3D one, you're going to get different depths of the gilding wax, because you've got different raised areas. So let's open this one up. So this side here is the emboss side. So I'm going to go in with my wax. Let's take our wax, we're going to just pick it up with our finger. I'm going to go onto my glass mat, and then I'm just going to go circular motions. Now with a 3D folder, the silver, or whichever colour you're going to use, Ben, it's going to be really, really intense on the high-rise side, and it's going to be a lot lighter away onto the back detail emboss side. So you can go in, we can then really start to intensify the high range embossed detail. We're just going to work our way round. We're going to go over the mane of the unicorn. We're going to work our way round to the side as well. And it doesn't take long. Now at home, Ben, I would, of course, spend a little bit more time than I'm doing here. Pick up the detail when it comes to all of the really deep main areas. Let's go into here, and then if we then put that in there, you can kind of see, there you go.
You can.
But then let's go close up.
Wow.
How fab is that? Now remember, if you have a look on the website, you've got different options with the gilding wax. That's just the silver there. So you can go really beautiful and really elegant, go that monochromatic way with the gilded wax. And what I've done there, of course, with the wax in the 3D folder, you can do, of course, when it comes to the 2D folder as well. It's all about fun, it's all about playing, it's all about experimenting, whether, of course, you're using the G2 or the MIDI. When you start to run that plate configuration through, Ben, with the folder, if it doesn't like it, that won't go any further, that will stop, and then it will just spit it back out, and you just need to, of course, go back to the beginning of your plate configuration order.
That's a beautiful embossing folder, that one too, from one of our more recent collections, which is the Majestic Unicorn. So again, if you want to pick that one up, if you search the website for the Majestic Unicorn embossing folder, I would imagine as well you will find other bits and pieces from that collection to go with it. So if you just like that theme of that beautiful Majestic Unicorn, do have a little bit of a look around and search all of the other goodies that we've got as far as that collection is concerned. This has been a brilliant show. I feel like we've covered a lot when it comes to 2D embossing folders. You've got your plate combinations there now. 3D embossing folders, you know your plate combos, you know the different kind of things that you can do as far as your stencils are concerned. Great to hear as well over the course of this show that if you want to run your templates through rather than having to mark those out, you've got the ability to be able to do that. All the different materials that we covered as well with Craig, so you know the kind of things that you can use within your embossing folders to achieve a fantastic effect. Cut and emboss folders we now know all about as well, which is brilliant, whether you're using your Gemini 2 or whether you're using your manual machines. And just seeing there again, Craig touching on how to sort of elevate your embossing using things like your inks, using things like your gilding waxes as well, just takes that emboss to the next level. Now we've just got a few minutes left, Craig. Perhaps just we can recap on some of the things we've done, because I know you've got some finished bits there.
Yeah, will do. We'll also do a quick recap within the folder plate configuration.
Yeah.
So when it comes to anything being your 2D folder or your cut and emboss folder, with your MIDI, all that you're going to do is use your shim. But when it comes to your Gemini electric machines, 2D folder, and of course cut and emboss folder is your base plate and then your top plate. Now when it comes to your 3D embossing folders, which we've kind of featured within the bells from Jingle All the Way, remember with that one you need to reduce it. So when it comes to the MIDI, it's nothing, put it straight through the MIDI. With your Gemini cutting plates, it's the base plate, magnetic, frosted shim. So you can then be going on things such as your acetate. We've also done many different things. I mean, your juice tins.
So good, that.
So good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, really good to do it. What about things such as your vellums, your parchment? You've got the embossed detail that we can show you at the front, but then really look spectacular on that opposite side when it comes to that deboss. We've done our core cardstock, whereas this is what it looks once you've run it through with your folders, but then start to sand it back with your blocks, start to take that cover, that coating off. You were talking about things such as your stencils,
yeah, and
how you can use them to emboss with your embossing mat, or maybe you've got your templates, as Ben talked about within the show here. Use them for your templates. We've even shown you how you can use your cut and emboss folders. We've gone through things such as elevating your designs within your embossing folder with your gilding wax. You've got your positive and the negative from your letterpress. So you've got all of these different features that you can then be getting creative with, and even with a good old 3D embossing folder onto your mirror cardstock. The main thing is, if it's too much, both machines, all machines will let you know if it's too much for you to then continue. Just reassess, of course, your plate configuration, and then have fun, play, experiment, and see the different looks that you can get.
There you go. A massive thank you to Craig for what I think has been a really, really brilliant show. Loads of education, loads of information for you there as well. Make sure you bookmark this show so you know where to come back to if you do have any embossing dilemmas. Maybe you forget your plate combination, maybe you forget what you're supposed to do when it comes to your manual machines. We've covered it all off in this show. And then of course, don't forget everything that you've seen in this show. If there's any particular embossing folder that you like, or that set of stencils that you particularly like, you can shop for it all on our website. All you need to do is just type the relevant item into the search bar. A massive thank you to Craig. As I've said, we will be back very soon for another Craft Your Stash with more information and ideas for you. But until the next one, thanks for watching and bye for now.